group of people. I am very hot on the microphone, yes? Very hot. So my name is Brennan McCurdy, and I'm the campus pastor over at Pavilions Campus. And I am going to be preaching to you this morning on the third Sunday of Advent. We're going to be talking about joy. Can you say joy? Awesome. Can you turn to your neighbor and say, you've got joy? Yeah, there we go. Turn to your second choice and say, hey, good looking. There we go. Now everybody's feeling good. Good. Hey, I got 3 little girls, and in our family, we have a family mission statement. I don't know if you have a family mission statement. Maybe we're just very professional about our family. No, we want our girls to grow up with intentionality. And we know that there are a lot of things speaking life and trying to speak into our girls' lives as they enter into school. And so for us, we want to constantly bring our girls back to ground zero, which is this is who we aim to be. This is who we long to become. And so we've come up with a family mission statement. We've recently adapted that family mission statement, actually, which is our family mission statement, so we can do what we want with it. So, but it goes something like this. I ask the girls all the time, I say, who are we? And they say, we're the McCurdys. We're kind. We're encouraging. We work hard. We look for lonely people. And we never give up. And that's who we are. That's who we are, and that's who we want them to become. And how do we come up with those things? Like, number 1, they're in here. Those are some of the attributes that we long for our little girls to become. And those are some of the things that we value. Amy and I, as husband and wife, we value those things deeply. And so we're going to say those every single day when we drop them off at school. We want you to be kind, encouraging, and we want you to work hard. And here's the thing. We're all family this morning. I don't know if you came here just as a feel-good, it's Christmas season, I need to be in church. I don't know if you're a regular attender here, but I'm hoping you're not here to just attend church, but you're here to participate in church. Because God needs people who participate in His kingdom, not people who just sit in the seats and feel good because one guy got up and talked and maybe made you laugh a few times. You are here to participate this morning. And what I mean by participate, it's like the difference between a college student who's sitting in the back streaming March Madness or the person who's up front taking notes. I want people who are note takers. I want people who want to work hard. And I think God wants people that want to work hard. So I hope that you're here this morning to participate. I want you to work hard this morning. The words that I say, I have been studying for probably 40 hours this week, unpacking this idea that I think is going to be very helpful for you, because it's been very helpful for me. But it's going to require you to work, to peel back some of the layers that exist. Are we ready to work? Okay, let's go. I want to share a story with you. Can I do that? Okay, there's this guy named Billy Bob. It's a real person, okay? That's not a made-up name. Billy Bob Harold. The year is 1985. He lives in the great state of Texas. And Billy Bob was he was a good old boy. Had a wife, 3 kids, and worked at the Home Depot. And if you were to ask about the type of person that Billy Bob is, most people would say he's a good husband. He's a good man. He's a good father. And Billy Bob had a routine. Every day he'd wake up early. He'd get his breakfast. He'd go into work at the local Home Depot. He would get along with everybody there. He'd stop and get gas on the way home. He'd buy a Snickers, a Dr. Pepper, and a lotto ticket and go home. And then he'd watch the news and he'd go to bed. Billy Bob was a good man. And then June 25th, 1985, an event took place in Billy Bob's life that changed him forever. 2 months after this event, his kids started to say, Dad, something's changed. You're different. 4 months later, his wife said, you're not the same man. And she divorced him. People started to say, you're different. You've changed. You don't bring happiness around anymore. Billy Bob started to date around, try and figure out what was going on. Those relationships ended up failing as well. His kids ended up isolating him. His wife left him. A year went by. Billy Bob found himself in his house alone, and he took his life. It's a horrible story. It's a horrible story. So what was the event on June 25th, 1985? Billy Bob won the Texas Lotto. $31 million. Changed his life. Took his life. See, somewhere along the way, growing up, this idea is ingrained into our DNA that if you're going to be happy in this world, you've got to have money. And I think that that's true, to an extent. There were two Nobel Peace Prize winners. They were economists. And they did a study trying to connect money and happiness. Money and joy. They tried to connect these two things and how related they are. And here's what they found. They found that most people who made $30,000 a year said that if they'd only made $50,000 a year, they would be happier. And the people who made $50,000 a year said if they only made $100,000 a year, they'd be happier. And the people who made $100,000 a year said if I only made $200,000 a year, I'd be happier. You see where this is going. And here's what they found, is that money does make a difference. Money does make a difference in happiness, but it has a cap. So the people who are in the lower income level, who are making $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a year, money makes a large difference in their life because they're not getting the basic needs that a human needs to survive. So money does make a large difference in their life. They said right around the time when your basic needs are met, money doesn't make a difference anymore. And they capped that right around $70,000 in their studies, right around $70,000 to $75,000. The idea that money brings happiness is taught to you and I. When we graduate high school, you get a job, you get more money, you get control, you get your first car, you graduate college maybe, you get hopefully a real paycheck at some point in your life. You're like, money is awesome, okay? I can do whatever I want. This is fantastic. At some point, we have to retrain our brains because our brain just keeps telling us that more money equals more joy. And for lack of a better term, more money is more problems, people. The reason that's funny is because it's true. More money is more problems. And the thing we're going to talk about today is joy. And if I can't get you past this idea that I can find joy without finding money, then I'm never going to get you to the point that this book says. So we've got to overcome this idea that we've been taught our entire lives. And culture's been saying this. Money equals happiness. That's not true. Some money equals happiness. Now that's true. All money is not true. So we got to check ourselves a little bit. Because money does not equal happiness. Are we all on the same page there? Amen. Okay. So that's the first myth about joy, okay? If you're keeping track this morning, is that money does not equate to joy, all right? Billy Bob, if you were to go and research other lottery winners, he's not an anomaly. I wish I could say he was. There are so many stories like him of people who come into winning the lottery and it ruins their life. But we have such a false perception of people who have money and have other things that it's going to bring us joy and happiness. Okay? We're going to sit that right there. So money does not necessarily equal joy. And I'm not going to leave you hanging. We're going to get to the answer. That's the whole point of today, right? We're going to unpack this thing. I'm going to give you the answer we've all been looking for this morning. Because I have been spending the last 2 years of my life looking for it. And I've done the hard work of going to counseling, of talking to friends and mentors. Because I think if we were to take a poll of everybody in the room, who wants more joy? 100%. For those of you who didn't raise your hand, you're an introvert or you're just prideful, okay? So I'll pray for both of those things. Everyone wants more joy. If you don't, you're lying to yourself. And nobody can figure out how to get it. Here's the second myth about joy, okay? And I want to jump into James real quick, and then we're going to unpack this myth, because James gives us a really peculiar verse, and it's a verse that I have struggled with my entire life, because I'm like, that just doesn't make sense. Did the author make a typo here when he was typing this on his MacBook Pro? For sure he missed this thing. This was an autocorrect. So this is what it says. James 1:2, if you're following along, it says this. And if you do not have this verse underlined in your Bible, I'd highly recommend it. It says this: consider it a pure joy. Okay, so here's where I'm tracking with him. Him and I are on the same page. James, you're my boy. I'm with you on this, okay? Consider it a pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials. That's where I think the typo happened. What? There's something else could have been in there. Whenever you face, toys, something else should be in there. Trials should not. The translation probably got lost, is what my first, whenever you face trials. Joy and trials do not go together. They don't. In my heart, I'm no, I can't be happy and sad. That's just confusing. That's the myth. Is that you can't find joy in sadness. Here's the thing. Joy is not the absence of sadness. I want to show you guys a quick clip of one of my favorite Disney movies. And it's gonna help show you how we treat joy and sadness. Check this out.
First day of school, very, very exciting. I was up late last night figuring out a new plan. Here it is, fear. I need a list of all the possible negative outcomes on the first day at a new school.
Way ahead of you there. Does anyone know how to spell meteor?
Disgust. Make sure Riley stands out today, but also blends in.
When I'm through, Riley will look so good, the other kids will look at their own outfits and barf.
Joy. Yes, Joy. You'll be in charge of the console, keeping Riley happy all day long. And may I add, I love your dress. It's adorable. Oh, this old thing? Thank you so much. I love the way it twirls. Train of thought. Right on schedule. Anger. Unload the daydreams. I ordered extra in case things get slow in class.
Might come in handy if this new school is full of boring, useless classes, which it probably will be.
Oh, sadness. I have a super important job just for you. Really? Mm-hmm. Follow me. What are you doing? And there. Perfect. This is the circle of sadness. Your job is to make sure that all the sadness stays inside of it.
If you have not seen that movie, it's wonderful. It is one of my favorite Disney movies. It's about a little girl, and these are characters of her emotions inside of her. And what it does is it shows us, so Joy is the character of Joy. And what is she trying to do with sadness? Contain her. Put her in a little circle and say, no, you don't come into my life. You stay right here, please. This is the best place for you. Joy is not the absence of sadness or pain. It's actually the exact opposite. You can't have joy if you don't have pain. The way in which you and I know that we experience joy is because we experience pain. We know this. Who has kids? You know this. I don't even need to say anything else. Everybody in the room is already laughing. You know that kids bring joy to your life. If I were to ask you to name the top 3 things that bring you joy, if you've got kids, hopefully they're in there. So kids are probably in there. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt this morning. Kids are in there. If I were to also ask you to name the top 3 hardest things in your life, guess what's also in there? Kids. So we understand how this principle plays out. Kids bring joy, kids bring pain. Like, here's how today's gonna work. I know this is how it's gonna work. Like this morning, right before Pavilion's campus, like little Ellie Jo came up and gave me a massive hug, and we had kids singing over at Pavilion's campus, and it was adorable. Ellie Jo had a hat on that was like 50 times too big, and it was like over her eyes, and she was just adorable. And like, those are the little things that as a dad, you're just like, I'm welling with joy right now. Like, I'm just a giant blubber face. Like, this is awesome. I'm gonna try and take a nap in about an hour and a half from now. And I know exactly how this thing's gonna play out. Ellie Jo's gonna come up, and she's gonna want me to read to her, and she's gonna wanna do my nails, and she's gonna wanna play, and I'm like, baby girl, just give daddy 10. You know what I mean? Like, just, and then she's gonna look at me with those Puss in Boot eyes and say, please, and then I'm gonna say, yeah. It's like, I'm gonna wanna at some point kill her this afternoon, probably. I promise you I won't. I'm a good dad. But I'm just being very honest with what my mental thought will be in an hour and a half. I love her and I hate her. Sometimes that's 30 seconds. And if you're a parent, you know that's the truth. So why don't we translate that to the rest of our lives? Because we've all been looking for joy. We cannot attach joy to our circumstances. And this is what James is trying to teach us. Consider it a pure joy, my friends, when you face trials. He's saying those trials shouldn't be dictating your joy. But most of the time, you and I are hoping for an experience or a circumstance that is going to dictate our joy. Let me give you an example. How many people have been on vacation recently? You had high expectations for that vacation to bring joy. How many of you had a fight on vacation? All right, one person telling the truth, thank you. So, sometimes vacations bring joy. Sometimes they don't. Many times, we allow our joy to be attached to our current circumstance in life. And what I'm here to tell you this morning is, and it's not your fault, and it's not my fault, because this is the way we were raised. It's the same with money. You need it to survive. You need joy to survive. But you've been asking all the wrong questions, and you've been going about finding it all the wrong way. And I'm going to say something, and I need you to write it down, because this is one of those aha moments for you, because it was one for me, and it changed the way that I thought about joy, because it changed the way that I started to ask questions. And when you change your question, you get different answers. Because right now the question has been, how can I get more joy? All of us? Yes. I see all hands. Okay, good. No need. How can I get more joy? That's the question. It's the wrong question. Because here's the problem. Joy is not discovered. It's developed. Joy is not this like treasure hunt that you and I go on and find on vacations or find in small moments. Because ask anybody who has little kids when they've already left the house, like I envy all of you, but ask any of them. You know the times that they'll point to that they'll find joy the most in? It's the times that I find the hardest right now. Joy is developed, friends. It's not discovered. It's not like this treasure map that we just go and find and we got to create the perfect dynamic for it. It is developed inside of you. It is a perspective that you have about your circumstances, not the circumstances itself. Do you see how James starts with consider? Do you see the option he's giving you? The actual Greek translation says, count it all joy. He's not forcing us here. He's saying, I want to give you the option to count it a joy. Because trials suck, okay? I get that. And here's what this isn't saying, because I think the church has done a little bit of a bad job in communicating this, and I want to spend a few minutes just talking about this for a moment. This verse does not mean that when something horrific happens in your life, you should have a smile on your face and joy should exist at all times. Nobody is that person. And if you are, you're fake. You're not dealing with a lot of stuff that's going on inside of you, and you're going to need years of counseling, okay? So, pain is real. Suffering is real, and it happens to us. And James is not saying that when you should have suffering, that you should just smile and laugh all the way through it, because we know that's dysfunctional. What he is saying is that it is possible to go through trials, to have issues in your life, to have circumstances that are unfortunate, and still have joy in spite of those things. That's what he's trying to communicate. So take Jesus on the cross. I promise you, he was not smiling on the cross. That's not the picture I have of Jesus. I have a heavy picture of Jesus. I have one of sorrow. But I also have a picture of hope in his eyes. I imagine looking at him and seeing hope in his eyes. Because you see, he was in that moment joyful because he could see something bigger. He could see in the moment what he was doing for all of humanity, for you and I. He developed joy because he developed a relationship with the Father. So the thing that I don't like about James is he gives us this thing that says, consider it a pure joy whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. So he gives us the antidote, and he gives us like the why, but he doesn't give us the how. And I'm like, I need the how, bro. Like, I need to know how to get there. Like, I see you. I know you're motivating. I want to be joyful in trials. I know it develops faith and perseverance, but I need the how. I really need the how, because I don't know how to get there. And the way that I don't know how to get there is because I've been asking the wrong questions my entire life. I've been asking the wrong questions my entire life. Because you see that joy is not the end goal. And that's what I think many of us believe, is that joy is the end goal for us. If I can just be happy, if I can just get to retirement and be happy. I had a conversation this last week with a friend who just retired. And we were just going out to lunch. And do you know how hard retirement is? You probably don't, because most of us aren't there. But I want to share with you that it's hard. And many of you are like, Mom, you can't have empathy for people who are retired. But like, I feel you. Retirement is going to be hard because you don't realize how much of your identity and your value is wrapped into your work, into your hands, into your being and your doing. Retirement can be lonely. It can be hard. Our joy, you guys, we've been asking all the wrong questions. And it's not this idea of how can I get more joy. It's not. I have a favorite book that I usually read every 1 to 2 years. And it's by a guy by the name of Viktor Frankl. It's a strong name. He's a Holocaust survivor. And he wrote this book called Man's Search for Meaning. It's a very powerful book. And I want to read a quote to you. It says this. It says, don't aim at success. The more you aim at it and make it the target, the more you're going to miss it. Don't aim at success, because the more you aim at it, the more you're going to miss it, okay? Don't miss this, you guys, because he's going to unpack something incredibly powerful for us. Like happiness or joy cannot be pursued. It must ensue. And it only does so as the unintended side effect of one's personal dedication to a cause greater than oneself, or as the byproduct of one's surrender to a person other than oneself. Happiness or joy must happen. And the same for success. You have to let it happen by not caring about it. Did you get that? One of the number one problems for you and I The reason we don't have more joy in our life is because we care so much about it. It's a big deal. We've been asking all the wrong questions. Because the question we've been asking ourselves is, how can we get more joy? And Viktor Frankl says, by asking that question more and more and more, you're actually moving yourself further and further and further away from the goal of getting more joy. Because you see, joy is a byproduct. It's not the end result. So if joy is a byproduct, then what are the things that we need to do that create the byproduct of joy? And here's the question that I want us all to ask, because this is the question that changed the game for me. Because I switched from this idea of how can I get more joy? And this is the question that changed for me, is why did I come to Jesus? When I stopped asking the question, how do I get more joy? And I started asking the question, why did I come to Jesus? You may be thinking those are two completely different thoughts, but they're actually one and the same. Because some of us come to Jesus because we want joy from him, because we want happiness in our lives. And that's a good thing. You should want those things. We come to Jesus because we want joy. And Jesus brings joy, absolutely. He absolutely does. But it's the wrong reason to come to Jesus. We don't just come to him and surrender our life to him, because what we end up doing is we negotiate a contract. We say, if I go to church, if I show up and I listen to this guy for now 30 minutes, if we sit here and I stay awake the whole time and I leave this place, good things better happen to me. Good things better exist in my life. I better get a raise at work. I'm due, okay, karma? Let's go. I've been showing up to church. I even started tithing to church. Let's go. Do you see the subtle negotiation of a contract when we come to Jesus with this idea, if I do this, you do this? That's not the way that we can come to Jesus. And many of us come to Jesus with that expectation. Many of us do. Here's the proper way that we need to come to Jesus. It's this idea that, Jesus, I need to come to you and surrender my life, and you owe me nothing because you've given me everything already. You owe me nothing because you've already given me everything. Do you see how that contract works? My expectations for God in my life, do you know what happens between now and my last breath? I don't care. I don't care. Something horrific happens to my family, I don't care. My God's already given me everything. He's given me everything I need. He owes me nothing. You see, we operate in this silent contract with God, that he owes us something. He owes us joy. We've come to God on the wrong terms. We need to come to God and say, you've already given me everything. I owe you my life. I owe you everything I have. My kids, my money, my house, everything is yours. That's how we find joy. That's how we get joy in our lives. John 15 tells us this way. It says this. I think we've got it up there, yeah? Maybe? Perfect. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love, and if you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands, and remain in his love. And verse 11 is the verse you and I have all been looking for our entire lives, and it's been staring us in the face, and we've been missing it. It says this, I have told you this so that my joy may be complete in you. Stop. We've been trying to figure out joy on our own. We've been trying to circumvent our own joy. And God is saying, it's my joy, okay? It's not yours. My joy may be what? My joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete. The formula is all wrong. We've been asking all the wrong questions. How can I get more joy? How can I get more joy? How can I get more joy? And it's been doing the very thing that we hate the most. It's been pushing us further and further away from joy, when we should be asking, how is it that I came to Jesus? Because if I came to him saying, God, you've given me everything. Your son died for me. He bled on the cross for my sins. And that is everything I need. Now I owe you everything. Now it doesn't matter what happens in your life. Joy can't be robbed from you. Circumstances don't matter, because you've already got it. Before anything already happens, you've got it. This is how joy works. Many of you are familiar with the prodigal son story. It's a story and a parable that Jesus shares. And the son wants his inheritance early, and so the dad generously gives it to him, and the son goes and he blows it all. And the son, because he's sleeping with pigs, grovels home to the dad. And he says, make me one of your servants. And here's the most powerful piece to the story. The moment the son treats the father like a king, the king becomes a father. The moment the son treats the father like a king, the king immediately becomes a father. Because the father says, go, son, we're going to celebrate you. Many of us have come to Jesus on the wrong terms. And we've set the wrong expectations before us. And it's not your fault, and it's not my fault. Just like money, nobody ever told me. And I'm telling you now. Let's stop asking the wrong questions and let's start asking the right ones. Why is it that you came to Jesus? Because you start to answer that question, and I promise you'll start to find more joy in your life. Because joy is everywhere, people. It's everywhere. You and I just aren't tapping into it. So as the worship team comes back up to close us out this morning, that's the question I have for you. Why is it that you came to Jesus, whether it was last year, 10 years ago, 50 years ago? Why is it? And maybe some people in the room need to come to Jesus again and say, God, I'm sorry. I had to do that this week. I'm sorry that I've come to you looking for all the things that I thought you were going to bring to me, because you are a good, good Father and you have access to all those things. But I want to come to you on terms and say, I owe you everything, God. I owe you everything. And you don't owe me anything because you've already given me everything. And if you need someone to pray over you today and pray that prayer, because maybe you've never come to God because you don't even know what that looks like. Now's the day. He's done everything for you. He sacrificed his son on the cross for you. And we're about to celebrate the birth of Jesus. And that impacts your life greatly. And it impacts my life greatly. And if you've never surrendered your life to Jesus, then now's the day. Because he's laid it out before us that he has sacrificed everything for you and I already. He's given you everything he can give. It's just a matter of us to accept it. And maybe some of you in the room have been living your entire life trying to just pick pieces of joy from God and find the right circumstances. It's like, stop that. Come to him and say, God, I want to surrender my life to you because you've already given me everything. I owe you everything. Let's live life that way. Do you see what I mean about hard work? This is not easy. It's hard. It's hard to believe you owe someone you've never met everything. That's hard to wrap your mind around. I understand that. But it's also hard to wrap your mind around someone who gave their only son for you and your sins. And that's real. And that's why we celebrate Christmas. So let's pray. Jesus, we are so grateful that we can experience joy and happiness in our lives. But God, we want more. We want more, God. And because we want more of that, it means we want more of you. So God, I pray for more of you. Even if that right now in the short term means less joy, I pray for more of you. And I pray for the people in the room, God, who had a silent contract with you about giving you something and them getting something in return, God. I pray that today they would renegotiate that contract and say, I don't need anything else in return because you've already given it. I surrender my life to you. It's yours. Do what you will, Abba. And God, I pray in that moment, we would be able to do exactly what James says, which is consider it a pure joy when we face trials of many kinds. In Jesus' name I pray.